The day our HOA bully met his match. It was a quiet Tuesday evening in our pristine suburban neighborhood of Willow Creek, where the lawns were manicured and the mailboxes all matched. I was helping my daughter with her math homework when a belligerent knock rattled our front door. Standing there was our HOA's self-appointed security chief, waving a gun at my wife over a petty parking dispute. He thought he was intimidating a typical suburban mom. He had no idea she was the one who trained America's deadliest soldiers. What happened next turned our peaceful community upside down and left us questioning everything we thought we knew about justice, power, and the people we love. My name is Henry Thompson, 52, a retired accountant who now consults from our home in Willow Creek, a picture-perfect suburb where the HOA enforces rules stricter than a military base. My wife, Laura, 50, is what I thought was a part-time yoga instructor. She's the kind of woman who bakes brownies for the neighborhood potluck and still looks like she could grace a magazine cover. Our daughter, Sophie, 10, has her mother's hazel eyes and my stubborn streak. Life was predictable boring, even until we crossed paths with Carl Jenkins, the HOA's resident tyrant. Carl, 48, was a disgraced ex-cop, fired for excessive force, but somehow wormed his way into becoming Willow Creek's head of security. He patrolled in a laughable black SUV with HOA patrol slapped on the side, wearing a uniform straight out of a costume shop. To him, our quiet streets were a war zone, and he was the general. His obsession with control started small, fining us $75 for leaving our trash cans out an hour too long. I paid it, grumbling, but Laura just smiled and said, "Let's not sweat the small stuff, Henry." I should have known she was biding her time. The trouble escalated one chilly October evening. I'd left my Ford Escape in the driveway after a long day, too tired to pull it into the garage. By 7 p.m., Carl was pounding on our door, reeking of whiskey. "This ain't a junkyard," he slurred, jabbing a finger at my car. Sophie clung to my leg, scared, as neighbors peeked through their blinds. I tried to calm him down, apologizing profusely, but Laura stepped forward, and the air shifted. Her usual warmth vanished, replaced by a steely calm I'd never seen. "What did you just say to my husband?" she asked, her voice low and sharp. Carl faltered, his bravado flickering, but he muttered something about towing our car and stomped off. That night, I couldn't shake the image of Laura's posture, almost military, like a coiled spring ready to strike. Over the next few weeks, Carl's harassment became relentless. He cited us for a hedge half an inch too tall, a mailbox that was non-compliant in color, even a birdhouse Sophie made that he deemed unsightly. Each fine came with a pompous letter threatening legal action. One morning, I woke to find a landscaping crew hacking our lawn into bizarre cubes, courtesy of Carl's emergency maintenance order. The bill? $400. Our once lush yard looked like a bad modern art project, and Laura's prized roses were ruined. When I called Carl, he laughed. "Follow the rules, Thompson, and you won't have problems." But Laura was changing too. I caught her in our backyard at dawn, practicing what looked like combat drills, swift, precise movements against a heavy bag she'd hung in the garage. She claimed it was functional fitness, but it reminded me of action movies, not yoga. She installed security cameras around our house with a technical skill I didn't know she had. One night, I woke at 3 a.m. to find her outside, moving silently through the shadows, checking fences and sight lines like she was guarding a fortress. When I asked, she said she was worried about Carl, but her eyes told me there was more to it. The breaking point came when our golden retriever, Max, was poisoned. Someone had tossed tainted meat over our fence, and Max nearly died. The vet bill was $1,200, and Sophie was heartbroken. We couldn't prove it was Carl, but it happened days after Laura filed a complaint with the HOA board. That night, I found Laura in the garage assembling what looked like CIA-grade surveillance gear, motion sensors, high-res cameras, the works. "Borrowed from a client," she said, but her evasive tone made my stomach churn. Who was this woman I'd been married to for 15 years? Desperate for answers, I snooped in our basement and found a locked box Laura hadn't hidden well. Inside were documents that made my blood run cold. Detailed dossiers on Carl, including his criminal record, psych evaluations, and bank statements. There were surveillance photos of him at bars, alone, unaware he was being watched. The files were stamped with government seals, marked classified. Handwritten notes in Laura's script outlined Carl's vulnerabilities and pressure points. This wasn't a yoga teacher's hobby, it was a military operation. I confronted Laura, my voice shaking. What kind of yoga instructor has access to classified intel? She sighed, her face softening. Henry, I can't tell you everything, not yet. I train people in high-risk jobs. My clients need discretion, and I've been protecting our family. Her words were careful, but I knew she was holding back. The next day, she took her findings to the HOA board, presenting a PowerPoint like a seasoned prosecutor. She exposed Carl's drunken patrols, financial scams, and harassment of other families. The board was stunned, but Carl exploded, screaming that Laura was a liar and a threat to the community. He stormed out, vowing revenge. That night, a chilling note appeared on our mailbox. Your wife thinks she's clever, but tomorrow she'll learn her place. Laura read it without flinching, her calm unnerving me. I checked our security footage and saw her conducting late-night patrols, moving like a ghost, using hand signals I'd only seen in war films. She'd been mapping the neighborhood, watching Carl's house through what looked like night vision goggles. In the basement, I found more gear, body armor, tactical radios, and certificates naming Laura as a master instructor for advanced combat training. My wife wasn't just hiding a job, she was hiding a life. The next morning started normally. I was packing Sophie's lunch when Laura suggested I take the back route to school. It might be an interesting day, she said, her eyes scanning the street. Carl's SUV was parked across from our house, engine running, as he sipped from a paper bag. Sophie asked why the mean man was always watching us, and I brushed it off, uneasy. 2 blocks from school, Laura called. Henry, come back now. Park 2 blocks away and call the police. Carl's here, drunk, with a gun. My heart raced as I dialed 911, explaining to a skeptical dispatcher that our HOA thug was armed. I parked, told Sophie to stay put, and crept toward our house. Carl was in our yard, screaming at Laura, waving a pistol. He was a mess, slurring, swaying, his uniform stained. You ruined me, he bellowed. You're gonna pay. Laura stood in the driveway, eerily calm, her body poised like a soldier's. When Carl fired a shot into the sky, the crack echoed, and Sophie screamed from the car. Neighbors gawked as Carl pointed the gun at Laura. I stepped forward, shouting, "Don't you dare threaten my family." But Laura's sharp glance stopped me. Protect Sophie, Henry. I've got this. What happened next was a blur. Laura moved like lightning, closing the gap in a heartbeat. In 3 seconds, she disarmed Carl with a fluid, practiced motion, leaving him stunned, staring at his empty hands. She held his gun, safely pointed down, and said, "You aimed a weapon at my daughter. That was your last mistake." Carl lunged, but Laura sidestepped, letting him crash into our roses. Sirens wailed as police swarmed in. The cops were baffled, a sobbing ex-cop in our flower bed, a suburban mom holding a gun like a pro, and me, a panicked dad trying to shield Sophie. Laura handed over the weapon with textbook protocol, presenting credentials that made the officers' eyes widen. Carl ranted that Laura was a terrorist, but his drunken lies fell apart. Witnesses confirmed he'd fired the gun, and his lack of a permit sealed his fate. As they cuffed him, an officer asked Laura how she disarmed him so cleanly. She glanced at me, then said, "I'm a combat instructor. I train Navy SEALs." The words hit like a thunderbolt. My wife, the woman who packed Sophie's lunches, taught America's elite soldiers? A young officer recognized her. "Instructor Laura? You trained my unit in 19. You're a legend." He turned to the crowd, awestruck. "She trains the deadliest men alive. This guy never stood a chance." Neighbors gasped, and I stood there, dumbfounded. As Laura explained, she'd kept her job secret to protect us, bound by security clearances. Carl faced a litany of charges: assault, endangerment, illegal firearm possession. He was sentenced to 7 years, and his house was sold within weeks. The HOA, shamed by their negligence, overhauled its leadership and banned armed patrols. Families came forward with stories of Carl's bullying, and Willow Creek rallied around us. Laura became a local hero, teaching self-defense classes at the community center. Sophie bragged at school that her mom was cooler than Captain America. Our marriage grew stronger. Laura's strength wasn't new, I'd just never seen its source. She was still the woman I loved, just with a side I hadn't known. One night, As we watched Sophie play in our now safe yard, I asked, "Any other secrets?" She laughed, "Just that I'm really good at keeping them." Willow Creek felt like home again, but I knew one thing. No one would mess with the Thompsons, not with Laura guarding our corner of the world. What do you think about this story of justice and hidden strength? Have you ever faced a bully like Carl or witnessed an injustice in your community? Share your thoughts in the comments. Should violence ever be met with force, or is there a better way? Let's debate what fairness really means in today's world.